Can avoidants even fall in love? A question I've been asked hundreds, maybe even thousands of times. And in today's video, we are going to break down exactly that. And we're going to do this by dismissive avoidant and fearful avoidant. And I will also share from personal experience here how, when I was a fearful avoidant, this sort of impacted me in hopes that this will make a lot more sense to you. So if you're new here, my name is Gibson. I put daily videos out here all about attachment styles, the subconscious mind, and how we can actually heal to become securely attached by leveraging our understanding of how the subconscious can be reconditioned. So we aren't just identifying with the label, oh, I'm this attachment style. No, we're actually using that to then understand what we need to change or rewire to create true healing. So let's talk about this topic. And let's break this down by dismissive avoidance and fearful avoidance. We'll start with fearful avoidance. I myself was a fearful avoidant before doing the work to become earned secure quite a few years ago, probably 10 plus years ago at this point. Started that journey 15 years ago almost, actually, is when I began the journey. So crazy. So essentially, here's what happens, okay? When I was a fearful avoidant, I can tell you one thing. I could sort of fall in love with the idea of somebody I could really appreciate. And in a sense, I definitely had relationships when I was younger where I felt some sense of love. But when I was in relationships, I was constantly shielding my own vulnerability. So in a relationship, I wasn't really letting the things that I was feeling vulnerable about be seen. If I had something that I felt insecure about or afraid about or thought was unworthy or unlovable, I would hold that back. And if I had a need, like to be reassured around something challenging or confusing, or to have clarity on a topic in a relationship, I would go out of my way to literally not express those things because I thought that that was going to make me less lovable. And what I found in my own personal experience is the level of love you feel like you have tends to go hand in hand with the degree of vulnerability you're willing to put forth in a relationship. In other words, if I could actually track my own personal relationships, and I'm just one example, right? I worked in client practice for anybody who's new to this channel for the better part of 10 years. We've been putting our online programs through the personal development school for the last 5. I've been in this space for quite a long time. And, this is not just my experience. I'm just sharing my experience to show you personally. But I can remember looking back and feeling like I was always guarding myself, holding back, not letting myself be seen or known, not communicating my needs, not sharing my truth with people because I always had this fear of like, oh, I'm going to be weak or I'm going to be too vulnerable. And if I could track the relationships I had, how strong my feelings were essentially went hand in hand with how much I let people in. And this really pertains to this topic. Do avoidants fall in love? Yes, of course. I mean, but let's look at if you've ever looked back as an adult at like a high school relationship you had or a relationship you had when you were really young, maybe you were even in 8th grade or 7th grade, in those specific instances, what do you think of? You think of, oh, I was in love at the time, I felt all these feelings at the time, but relative to like what I was capable of feeling at that time, relative to the level of emotional maturity I had in that situation. And sometimes we may even sort of diminish later on the depth of those feelings because we realize, wait, I was only capable of this much in terms of love and connection. And I use that as an analogy to really illustrate that actually as an adult is not about the how old you were. It was about the depth of connection that you were capable of feeling and showing up for based on the level of vulnerability you were likely to bring into that relationship. And so there really can be a cap. And I worked with hundreds of clients that were dismissive avoidant over the years. And they would say to me, as they started doing the work to become earned secure, they would say to me, wow, now that I'm more vulnerable, I feel like my feelings run more deeply. And in the past, it was almost like I was just connecting to sort of a superficial version of somebody or the idea of somebody I was infatuated with. But when I actually let somebody in, let myself be seen, let myself be known, that's when I started to develop much deeper roots in regards to these feelings. Now, that's not the only part, okay? That's a really important part, but I just want you to have that first step of understanding that a lot of the depth of somebody's love and connection also has to go hand in hand with the depth of emotional vulnerability they're able to take in from somebody else. But even more importantly, the level of emotional vulnerability they're able to bring into the relationship themselves, how much they really allow themselves to be seen and known and received. And this is actually particularly important for not just fearful avoidance, but also dismissive avoidance, because dismissive avoidance go out of their way to not be seen because they're terrified of not being accepted. They're terrified of being judged or shamed when they're truly seen or known. So allowing people in to see them, to know them, and allowing themselves to be received that way is actually very healing in a sense from where they come from in their own childhood and earlier experiences. And of course, that is also very important for fearful avoidance as well. So that's the first part, is that, love has so much to do with our level of vulnerability. The second part is love also is built over time. Okay. Infatuation is something that we feel instantly. And, maybe you feel really excited about somebody, or maybe not instantly, but maybe that's something that's pretty clear and pretty strong in the dating stage. Maybe you look up to traits in a person, you really admire somebody, you feel really excited by their presence, these types of things, you get butterflies, all those things, those are actually really infatuation based. And often when people say love at first sight, I'm quick to be like, oh, is it limerence? Is it just limerence at first sight instead of actual love at first sight? But when we look at how love is really built over time, when we move the needle from more conditionally based love to more unconditionally based love, and what I mean by that is when you look at times that you're so infatuated with somebody, but maybe you don't know how they're going to handle a conflict. Maybe you don't know how they're going to show up during a difficult time that you're going through. Maybe you don't know how consistent they're going to be over the years. Maybe you don't know if they're going to keep showing up to work the relationship and try to grow with you instead of just leaving it on autopilot and instead growing apart. I mean, these are things that actually create building blocks of much more unconditionally based love. And one of the things that we'll often see in relationships is that when the needle moves, like something we talk about on this channel a lot, is there are 6 stages of relationships. Okay, there's the dating stage, there's then the honeymoon stage, then there's a power struggle stage, and even securely attached people go through the power struggle stage. And if you make it out of that stage, because it's statistically where most relationships end, you move into the stability, commitment, and bliss stages. But the literal cornerstone of the power struggle stage and why it can be so challenging is because it presents a very challenging opportunity. Now, a challenge and an opportunity seem like they are counterintuitive to each other or contradictory to one another. But really, what I mean by this is that in the power struggle stage, the way you move out of the power struggle stage is to start communicating about your feelings, your needs, and your boundaries. And if you do that consistently with your partner learns you. They learn the things that upset you and they can be mindful about them. They learn the places you need support and they show up for them. And vice versa. This has to be a two-way street if you're going to make it out of the power struggle stage. So if you do that work, that's what really deepens the roots from, this infatuation-based love, this excitement. And sure, there can be deeper roots to that too, beyond just pure infatuation. There can definitely be love there. But if we're moving into the depth of love where we truly know somebody, where we're able to accept them as they are, we're able to understand their fears and flaws and be mindful of those things, and then be received that way as well, that's where we deeply move the needle to more unconditionally based love. And it is very common for individuals, as it was for me before I did the work to become securely attached, to find themselves constantly going through dating, honeymoon, power struggle, having relationships end in the power struggle because you're not able to open up or talk about feelings and fears and needs and really build that level of emotional depth with somebody and receive that from them as well, and be mindful and considerate of the things that they share with you. If we don't know how to do that, because a lot of our attachment patterning is dysfunctional or maladaptive because our conditioning wasn't so healthy growing up, well, then what ends up happening is you keep getting stuck at that glass ceiling of, hey, there's still some conditions with love. And, I'm not moving out of a place of, hey, I accept you as you are. I'm accepted as I am, because there's still this expectation that goes hand in hand with that infatuation-based love that we fall for at the beginning. And so, that next big cornerstone of what really creates deeper roots for both fearful avoidance and dismissive avoidance is you have to be willing to do the work to become secure so that you can learn to communicate through challenges. Share what your needs are, share what your boundaries or fears are. And in doing that, you move the needle from more conditionally based love in the dating stage or honeymoon stage with the rose-colored glasses on into more unconditionally based love, where ultimately you can feel deeply seen and heard and connected to somebody that you have that special relationship with. And so as a result, that is another huge building block, is being able to do that work to learn each other so that you keep growing together instead of growing apart. And that is what takes love to that next level. Now, we could go on and on about this topic for a very long time, but that is work for both dismissive avoidance and fearful avoidance to do. If you want more support in actually doing this, I do have a course that you can check out fully for free for 7 days. It's actually about the attachment styles in each of those 6 stages of relationships, exactly the steps they need to take, exactly what they need to do to really grow when it comes to that connection. And right now, we have a series of really cool promotions. You can actually spin to win a free membership to PDS right now, or any other offer that will allow you to take those courses potentially fully for free, maybe even for an unlimited time. So you can check out the link below if you want to dive further into that. Thank you so much for being here and for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to this channel, like it, share it with somebody who might benefit, and I'll see you next time.